It all started on a crisp Saturday morning when I finally decided to take a break from the madness of city life. I packed my golden retriever, Rusty, some supplies, and an orange camping tent, and headed for the peaceful lake I owned just outside town. It was the perfect spot, serene, private, with a view that could melt stress off any man's shoulders. But within 30 minutes of setting up my tent near the water's edge and cracking open a cold drink, the screech of tires and an angry voice broke the calm. "You can't camp here. This is HOA property," screeched a woman in beige shorts, a pink blouse and sunglasses big enough to cover half her face. I sighed. I had heard about this woman Karen Dillingham, the self-appointed enforcer of a neighborhood HOA that technically had no jurisdiction over my land. The lake sat adjacent to the neighborhood, but was fully owned by me, a legal detail she either didn't know or chose to ignore. I calmly informed her, "This is private property. I own the lake and the land you're yelling at me on." She wouldn't hear it. "Liar. I'm calling the cops," she screamed, marching off and tapping furiously on her phone. I let her asterisk. 3 minutes later, 2 officers pulled up, clearly familiar with Karen's antics. I showed them the property deed I kept handy for moments like these. The younger officer chuckled, while the older one apologized and left. Karen stood flabbergasted, yelling that he must have bribed someone before storming off. Now I could have let it go. I could have laughed it off as just another encounter with a petty tyrant. But as I sat back in my lawn chair, watching the sun glimmer on the lake, an idea bloomed, one that made me smile wider than I had in months. Was done tolerating Karen. It was time to get even. Asterisk, you see, I'm not just a nature-loving camper. I'm also a commercial real estate developer with deep pockets and a love for revenge. Stories that play out with legal precision. I got to work that Monday. First, I hired a local surveyor to review the area around Karen's house. As luck or karma would have it, her street was built on a privately owned service road that the original developer never transferred to the county. I tracked down the owner, an elderly man who was more than happy to sell the access road and its connected lots for a modest sum, especially after I offered cash and promised to name a trail in his honor. Within a week, I owned the very street Karen lived on, including the right to control access to it. It didn't stop there. Asterisk, next. I filed paperwork to change the road's classification from residential access to private utility corridor and designated it as temporarily closed for infrastructure upgrades. Then, I ordered a custom metal gate, some reflective signs that read "Private Road, Note Through Access," and arranged for a private security guard to be stationed nearby. I timed the installation for a Friday morning, just when everyone would be leaving for work and school. Asterisk, when Karen walked out of her house and saw the gate being installed across the entrance to her cul-de-sac, her voice hit a pitch that probably scared birds out of the sky. "What is the meaning of this?" she shrieked at the contractor. I walked up calmly, coffee in hand. "Good morning, Karen. Just upgrading the road I own. You'll need to apply for temporary permits to access your driveway during construction hours. My office opens Monday." She looked like she was about to combust. "You can't do this. I'll call the county," she screamed. "Please do," I replied, handing her a copy of the deed and permits. Asterisk, by noon, HOA board members had assembled like angry hornets outside my temporary gate, all buzzing about lawsuits and violations. Unfortunately for them, I had done my homework. The HOA had no legal hold on the road. I had every right to block access for improvements, so long as emergency vehicles were allowed through, which of course I had coordinated with the fire marshal ahead of time. Asterisk, over the next few weeks, things got interesting. Delivery trucks couldn't reach Karen's house. Her weekly garden club was canceled. Residents had to park outside the community and walk half a mile to their homes. I even got a few letters from other residents asking if I was hiring a lawyer because they wanted in on a class action suit against the HOA for letting this happen. Turns out Karen wasn't very well liked after all, and I wasn't done. Asterisk, well, construction continued. I began hosting weekend lake picnics for the neighborhood, excluding Karen, of course. I hired a local taco truck, brought in paddleboards, and even installed a small floating dock. Kids loved it. Parents were grateful. And more importantly, Karen could see it all from her second-floor window, fuming behind the blinds. She tried calling the police again, but they remembered her antics and politely informed her, "Ma'am, he owns all of it." About a month later, Karen tried to drive around the gate one night, using a neighbor's yard. That ended in a flat tire and a trespassing notice I filed the next day. By now, she was getting desperate. Her HOA board tried to buy the street back from me, but I wasn't interested. Instead, I offered them a deal: dissolve the HOA entirely, refund the excessive fees they'd collected from homeowners over the past 2 years, and I'd consider reopening the road early. After a furious board meeting which several residents live-streamed, the vote passed by a slim margin. The HOA was dead. Karen moved out 2 weeks later. Rumor has it she went to live with her sister in another town. The road was eventually reopened, but only after I renamed it Freedom Lane. Right? These days, I still spend my weekends by the lake. The tent is going to be replaced by a modern lakeside cabin with solar panels and a deck that wraps around the water. Rusty lounges by the shore, and neighborhood kids still stop by to fish or paddleboard. Best part? No HOA to ruin it. Sometimes, justice doesn't need a gavel, just a tent, a little patience, and a deed with the right name on it. Asterisk.